For letting me speak a little bit here. I was asked to come and talk about the homeless outreach expansion and crisis center, as Gabby just said. So I'll just dive in here. We had been working over the last year with the city and within our own agency to get the homeless outreach team expanded. And we have actually just completed that as of last month. So in the last, well, since October, actually November of 2021 until now, the team has gone from 4 workers to 10 workers. And we onboarded our last worker, the 10th worker, this last month they started. And so they're basically in their role. So the team is now at 10 in its capacity to provide outreach services. The composition of that team is now multi-funded. So there's 4 different funding streams that are going into that team, which is a little bit awkward, but that's what we needed to do to get there. So we retain our traditional PATH grant. That is a federal SAMHSA grant that we've operated, I think, since 2001, if I remember correctly, that provides 2 outreach workers who focus on persons with a severe mental illness and who are also literally homeless. So they are kind of a targeted portion of the team. That's 2 workers who provide that more targeted work. This last year, Bert Nash also acquired another SAMHSA grant that is supporting 2 additional workers who have a similar role. They are there to provide assistance to persons who have a severe mental illness and are also experiencing homelessness. So PATH and these other 2 SAMHSA workers really work in conjunction with each other or provide a similar role. In addition to that, we have retained our existing city-funded portion of the team, which was traditionally supported 2 workers. That has been expanded to 4. So the city-funded component of our team now provides funding for 4 individual staff. And those staff really focus on a wider segment. They work with anybody within the community who is experiencing homelessness or significant housing insecurity, regardless of whether they have a mental health issue or any other type of issue. So they're just working with people in general who are experiencing homelessness. And in addition to that, we were awarded some one-time CDBG dollars for COVID to support 2 additional workers. And those 2 workers are targeted for the downtown area. So they are really focusing on outreach within the downtown, so New Hampshire Street, Mass Street, Vermont Street, but also the surrounding neighborhoods that border downtown and or are also high traffic and high camping areas within the downtown community. So that does include across the bridge, the levee area, behind Johnny's, for example, to the left and right. On the levee, if you go in each direction, you are likely to see individuals who are experiencing homelessness and camping in those areas. That also extends over to the Bircham Park area along the river, on the south side of the river, and as well as in the Eagle Sanctuary over behind the Amtrak station, and again the neighboring neighborhoods in the downtown area. That's kind of what their focus area is. Yeah. So those are all the different components of the team. They do work as a team, and they do work as a single team and coordinate and work and kind of try to help cover the bases as they need, respecting their individual roles that are associated with their individual funding streams. So that being said, there may be times in which one portion of the team is supporting another. We are expanding or furthering our relationship with Lawrence Parks and Rec, and we'll be continuing to provide ride-alongs with them, going out and around the community to identify places where people may be camping, or to help them intervene and provide services for individuals that they've identified as they go about doing their daily business, tending to the community's green spaces and other areas that Parks and Rec are responsible for. we are kind of making inroads with the library and trying to rekindle that relationship post-COVID and getting back into having a stronger presence there. I don't know, before COVID, there were some things the library was doing. Social service providers were coming to the library. They had some tabling sessions they were doing on a regular basis, and COVID kind of derailed a lot of that. And I think we're trying to get back to that point in time now where we're doing a lot of those things again. So we're working with them so the homeless outreach team can be present there. We're also doing things like going to Jubilee Cafe once a week, making sure we have a presence in that space. And we're also working to connect more with again, COVID has kind of intervened with a lot of the processes that were happening with our other outside partners like Lawrence Community Shelter. So we're reconnecting with them and rekindling some of the more formal processes that we had with Lawrence Community Shelter before COVID. So in a nutshell, that is kind of what the expansion looks like. We are also kind of assessing how do we do business with a team this size now. That I think does look a lot different than it did when we had a team of only 4. A team of only 4 was really limited, and really at the kind of towards the end of that process was focusing on a lot of emergent type of interventions, and we're not really capable of managing or balancing very effectively the difference between emergent intervention and kind of longer term helping people navigate systems and navigate processes. So we're assessing kind of the shift that we need to make, and maybe some shifts in how we do business in respect to just having a bigger team. Some of the things that we do that you may or may not be aware of or provide is also includes a walk-in session every day, Monday through Thursday. The team operates a walk-in session from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And that is really for anyone to be able to walk in and connect with staff, specifically households who may not have a phone, specifically households who may not have any other means to try and connect. They can walk into the center in the morning and be seen by somebody. And we also have an on-call every day that just manages phone calls. So each of the staff take turns managing either of those services throughout the week, the walk-in or the on-call. And the on-call is kind of like the walk-in, but through the phone. As we continue to get phone calls all day long, it's difficult for workers who are meeting with clients, attending scheduled appointments they have with their clients, to also manage just generally receiving phone calls and returning those phone calls. So we've dedicated people to managing the on-call process every day. I think that just about does it. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at. We are working with the city to target some of the outcomes that we identified in our initial contract with them, and to really look at how we might accomplish some of that. Those outcomes do include working with the library. They do include the ride along with Parks and Rec, but they also include some other partnerships we would like to further, for example, with the police, with Lawrence Police Department, in respect to their activities and coordinating with them around their contact with the homeless population and furthering that partnership. Bert Nash has a long-standing partnership with the Lawrence Police Department in the form of our co-responder relationship, in which we have a Bert Nash master's level licensed social worker who rides along with a team who goes out to the community for mental health response with the police force, and that has been a long-standing process. So this would really probably be expanding perhaps on that process. I think eventually we would like to work with the police force to maybe have some officers who maybe have a heart for this line of work, who have a heart for homelessness and people with housing issues and camping in and around the community, who want to do more work in intervening and interacting with that population and helping them connect with services. There are other communities across the country who do that. And for example, Portland, Oregon has a set of officers, then that's their full-time job, as they walk a beat throughout the community, kind of helping that population, stepping in when they can, helping them connect, kind of a police funded outreach team in some sense. But we probably don't have a population size quite large enough to justify that. But I think it's important that we include officers in this process. But I do think we have a population that is large enough for us to at least have somebody within the police force trained to and or interested in connecting with those individuals and working with that population as perhaps a sub-specialization of their overall work. Any questions about that, homeless outreach, and what homeless outreach looks like today as opposed to what it looked like 6 months ago? Okay.
Yeah. I was letting other people maybe. What's the phone number for the homeless outreach team? Is this the regular line?
Yeah, so if you call the regular Bert Nash line, 785-843-9192, and I'll throw it in the chat, you will get a phone tree, and homeless outreach is one of the options you can select. The reason we kind of move people in that direction is because that selection sends the caller to the on-call line. So that will forward them directly to the person who's on call each day to connect. And let me put that.
Hey, Matthew, it's Lori Trenholm at the Community Foundation. What time did you say the walk-in sessions are? Did you say Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m.?
Yeah, I'll type that in the chat as well. Walk-in is Monday through Thursday.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
And the reason it's not on Friday is because Friday mornings is the set team meeting time for our front desk staff, and so the Bert Nash doors don't open until later in the morning. So all our support staff have time to meet as a team and talk about their daily work and their weekly business. So the center just isn't open on Friday mornings until after their team meeting is over. Typically at 9 o'clock.
Am I recalling correctly that you all changed locations to like the old Panda Pediatrics building or something?
So yes, all Bert Nash community-based case management services are now located in the Medical Arts building at the corner of Main and 4th Street. If you're not familiar yet, that's where Heartland Community Health used to be and Panda Pediatrics used to be. The Medical Arts Pharmacy is in this building. So we have several, and we've actually moved a number of our administrative offices over here as well. So Bert Nash has taken 3 suites in this building over and have made a very significant move of our staff. The reason for that is we were running out of space in the main building. We no longer had space to house all of our direct outpatient service providers. So we had no offices for therapists and nurses and medication providers in that facility and needed to acquire other space so we could actually house staff to provide those services.
So Matthew, is that where the walk-in is? Is it the Medical Arts building? Okay.
Yeah, the walk-in is at the Medical Arts building. It's a little, the Bert Nash entrance is on the northwest quadrant of the building. And there's a glass door that says Bert Nash on it.
Hey, Matthew, I don't know if you can see my chat, but could you talk more about the SAMHSA funded workers?
Yeah.
You said they could provide services to those experiencing severe mental health issues.
So yes, both there are 2 SAMHSA funded workers and that includes our PATH team. PATH is also a SAMHSA funding stream. Those dollars get funneled through SAMHSA. They're actually out of the McKinney-Vento Act, which took place, I think in the late 80s, if I remember correctly. But those workers are targeting individuals who have a severe mental illness and who are experiencing homelessness. In essence, they work just like the other outreach workers, but targeting that population. That being said, I guess everybody on the team can work with someone. There's not really a restriction in respect to just generally speaking, but we try to be mindful that our funding streams do come with some prioritizations. But again, so the city funded staff can work with someone who is experiencing a mental health issue. We also are working with folks who have significant substance abuse issues, for example. So I guess I explained that in respect to our funding streams, but that doesn't mean that if you experience somebody in your organization, for example, at the library, and you think, hey, X, Y, and Z is going on with this individual, I need to call this or that worker specifically. That's you can call us generally and say, hey, can someone come down here? Or hey, this is what's going on. So everybody receives the exact same training. Everybody receives the full spectrum of training that we would provide any of our staff who are working at Bert Nash and who are providing community-based services. So those homeless outreach workers get all the same training that our case managers receive, our mental health case managers receive. So they, again, everybody can kind of do everything in that respect.
Thanks for that answer. And with that, is it like is it kind of just like some short-term like crisis intervention they can provide, or is it kind of just getting them access to mental health care?
So the team does a few things. So outreach, pure outreach, as you might see defined through the federal government or through other programs, is going out into the community, finding folks who need help and plugging them into the services that are available within the community. We do that. Additionally, we're also going to provide longer term case management like service and or care coordination type of service, in which we are walking alongside that individual over a longer period of time to help them navigate systems and help them navigate processes, and also to be utilized by them as a resource, both to help them make, connect with things, make phone calls, help them do searches, housing searches, but also we are a mental health provider and or a health provider to talk with them about their mental health needs, about their substance abuse needs, help them derive or develop treatment plans and or treatment goals, and to help them assess whatever may be going on in their life, to help them assess barriers, help them assess specific challenges that they're facing, and help them develop a plan and then basically execute that plan. Ideally, that is kind of what we're doing, while also being mindful of providing responsive services to the community. So there's a challenge there. In all honesty, those two service models don't necessarily always line up. So working over the long period with somebody means going out, meeting with them on an appointment basis, having a schedule of appointments that you maintain throughout the week in which you meet with your clients, an individual client, and you're only working with them at that time. Whereas being a response-based team means being available for phone calls that come in from an agency or someone else that's asking us to come out to the community, and also canvassing the community and areas that are high traffic locations to connect with people on more of an ad hoc basis. So we're still kind of, that has been a challenge throughout the entire tenure of the program. This program started in 2001 with the PATH program, and then 2006 with the city funded portion of the program, expanding that. That was another expansion at that time. So it is a challenge to balance those two, but our hope is that with 10 workers and with staff dedicated each day, for example, to do the walk-in and or to man the on-call process, that the size of the team allows us to provide some dedication each day to help better manage those two service models that we're trying to provide for the community. I think it's also really important for people to know, and I know the service providers, you all here are very, very familiar with this, that when we're talking about the homeless population, one of the biggest things that we need, or the largest resource we need to ultimately solve that problem, is housing. And we are in the middle of a significant housing crisis. So we could hire 1,000 outreach workers, speaking a bit figuratively there, but without the housing, we're not going to make inroads solving homelessness. So we have 10 workers. It's a big team, but until we make further strides in respect to significantly increasing the housing stock within the local community that's available, we will still be significantly challenged to reduce the numbers, see improvements in respect to fewer encampments, et cetera, et cetera. So there's the homeless outreach expansion. The TRC, the Treatment and Recovery Center, as you may or may not know, over the last 10 plus years, Bert Nash, the county, the city have been working to design and implement and build a treatment and recovery center, which is historically is called the Crisis Center and the Crisis Mental Health Services Center. That has come to fruition, and we have received the keys. So that building is complete. The construction phase of the building is mostly complete. I think there may be one or two little things that are kind of inconsequential that still need to be completed, but we have received the keys to the building, which means that we are continuing to ramp up in respect to getting it open and operational. A big challenge we're facing with that process is onboarding new staff and hiring. So there is a little bit of a hiring challenge that we're experiencing across the board right now with all our programs, and that is also affecting our ability to ramp up and implement those services as quickly as we can. That being said, I do think there is a rough timeline to have some service operating out of that building in July. I do know that on June 23rd, we will be doing kind of a formal walkthrough, kind of, hey, here it is. This is the actual final product, to formalize that process and to celebrate its completion. And then we'll be looking into July to have kind of a soft opening of the door to start operating some of that. Some of that also encompasses another shift in services at Bert Nash, in which we're moving some teams from our main building over to that location, and that will take a little bit of time to get those teams set up, to get their offices moved. So probably a week or so to get the move done, and then to get them used to kind of working in that space. But I think you can expect sometime in July there'll be an announcement saying that, hey, here's a soft opening. And then we're kind of at the throws and arrows of the labor market to see what we can do to hire staff. That being said, I do think we will have a little bit of an advantage, given that the state of Kansas and Bert Nash are implementing across the state for community mental health centers across the state a transition to the certified community behavioral health clinic model. If you're not familiar with that model, CCBHC, it is a new model, not new, I guess it's new. It's an initiative to provide services, maybe not in a different way, in a more integrated and whole health focused way of service delivery. In a nutshell, CCBHC is to mental health what the federal qualified health clinics are to primary care. So Heartland Community Health Center is an FQHC, a federally qualified health clinic. And with that comes some requirements, some quality standards in order to be an FQHC, and how they want services delivered and the types of services you have to provide. In the same way, CCBHC is very similar for mental health. So CCBHC requires us to do some things. We have to provide certain services, and there's a certain quality standard that's also associated with that. But it also comes with a different type of reimbursement rate for Medicaid, and this is explicitly revolved around Medicaid services and providing Medicaid assistance. So we will get an enhanced reimbursement rate, and that should allow us to provide a little bit better compensation for the positions that we're hiring for and for our existing staff. But we're also expanding some programs in order to meet those qualifications. As you may or may not know, we have an assertive community treatment team, an ACT team that we have stood up and is now operating. Assertive community treatment is an evidence-based practice. It's existed since the 1980s. That is focused on providing fully integrated transdisciplinary wraparound services for folks who have a significant mental health issue, and substance abuse issues and significant housing instability, and with the hopes of significantly reducing emergency services usage, inpatient treatment, and increasing community tenure for those targeted individuals. In addition to that, we are ramping up the what's called a mobile response team that will be responsible for going out to the community and providing mobile crisis response. So kind of like the crisis center, it's a crisis focused response, but out in the community, whereas the crisis center is there to provide crisis services within a clinical setting, bringing people in-house, providing those stabilization services, 24-hour observation that transitions to 72-hour observation in order to help those individuals stabilize and then find a solution or find some kind of means for them to go back out into the community with better supports. The mobile response team will connect with people who are out in the community and likely be one of the primary venues through which they enter the treatment recovery center. We're standing that service up as well. Things like medication-assisted treatment, which you may be familiar with, Suboxone, medication used to help assist people with substance use issues, is something that we will also be providing. It's a mandated service. Veteran services, there's a portfolio of things that we have to do under CCBHC. But I guess the point being that we should be in a better position to attract personnel, to hire talent in order to fill some of these positions that are going to be crucial for these facilities to open up and begin full operations. The treatment recovery center will be 24 hours when it's fully functioning, and will become the kind of new, it will become the standard destination for people who are experiencing a crisis in the community. Right now, the ER at LMH is that destination, and those services will shift from Lawrence Memorial Hospital emergency room over to the treatment and recovery center over the next several months. Any questions about that? Cool. I'll put my email in the chat as well. You're welcome to email me if you have any questions. I will say one thing as a caveat. I'm not the primary contact for the Treatment and Recovery Center. That's not necessarily my primary wheelhouse. But I can connect you with everyone or anyone who is the primary contact for that if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for speaking to us today regarding the homeless outreach team expansion and the treatment and recovery center. Everyone just ignore that I called it the crisis center. So yeah, I think we can open it up to Bev Turner to talk about the Children's Advocacy Center. You do have some materials to share, am I wrong?
I do, so let me
see if you can, and then if not, I'll fix it.
It looks like it's letting me, so can you, are you guys seeing the screen with the big logo on it?
Yes.
Okay, cool, thank you. I appreciate the thumbs up. That's what I always do when somebody's asking me. Okay, let me get over so I see what's going on here. Thank you so much, Matthew. That was such good information. I'm just always so impressed about the resources in the community, and the consistent improvement of them is pretty awesome. So I know a lot of you, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces and familiar names, so it's wonderful to see those of you I know again and give you an update on where we're at, and those I haven't met. Please come visit us. It's helpful to give us a call ahead of time just in case we're handling and working with families, but if not, just stick your head in. We're in the Human Services building for Douglas County. I know a lot of people commonly refer to that as United Way building. So we're right at 25th and Bridge. Actually, I'm right down the hall from Gabby. So we're becoming somewhat office mates now. So a little bit about the Advocacy Center and what advocacy centers do. So there is 17 now in Kansas. We would be the 17th. And many of them, they've developed over the last probably 25 years. So the ones that have been around the longest in Kansas, I think, are looking at close to their 25th anniversary. So we serve Douglas County, obviously, but we also serve on a courtesy basis those who might come from other communities. And what that kind of looks like, I'll walk you through our services, but it might look like the child resides here and the abuse took place in another county. So we might have another, for example, this week alone, we have 2 separate counties in Missouri that are coming here. Law enforcement's investigating there, but the child resides in Douglas County. And so it's much easier and better for the family to just have it right down the street where they can come here for their interview. So that's way sometimes we get involved, and they're not all, you know, that it happened in Douglas County. Also, it can happen the opposite, where the crime took place here and the child resides somewhere else. So we work very closely with other advocacy centers. So for example, we'll be reaching out to another one in a whole nother state, not even Missouri, to make sure that a family who's associated with the abuse, another child victim, can be served by another advocacy center. So there's nearly 900 in the United States. And we're all part of the same model and accreditation and whatnot. So a little bit about us. This first, if it lets me, just a really short video.
I don't know if you're trying to play audio, but it's not coming through.
Oh, well, that's terrible news. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
It's playing on my end. You know, I'll just skip past it. This is just a quick little video that shows the purpose of having an advocacy center, and I'll explain it, is to have all these agencies work together for what's best for the child, reduce the number of times that a child has to tell their story, therefore reducing trauma. Also better evidence collection, and then we're all working together. Oh yeah, can you tell it's medical, law enforcement?
Well, if you stop sharing your screen and reshare it, there's a button at
Maybe
the
that'll
bottom.
do it.
Is share sound.
You know what? No problem. It's so short. It's like a
Okay.
2-minute one. But thank you though. But I'll just keep talking so I honor your guys' time. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about all those people anyway. But so that's the purpose, and I'd be happy to share the little link in case anybody really likes to watch videos like me. So the whole purpose is that we're all working together, and I'm going to show you a screen that has all the partners that are part of our protocol. So they tried about 10 years ago to start a CAC here, and I believe even before that there was efforts. It just gets difficult because some advocacy centers are under the umbrella of CASAs in their area, some are under the umbrella of hospitals in their area. It just depends. So it can look very different. I come from, and my experience is working with the one that serves Johnson and Wyandotte County, and I'm sure you guys can see the map now and where Douglas County is. And so that's where I come from. And so sometimes the way things are done there at Sunflower House is a little different than what happens in Shawnee County at Lifehouse. So the whole point is there's certain things that we have to do that are best practice, of course. So you can see us in Douglas County. Some interesting things about this map. Anybody who has the slanted lines means they actually are just served on a courtesy basis, like I was just giving you the examples. They don't actually have an advocacy center. So we do still have communities in Kansas that are without one or are only served sporadically. You can see Franklin County underneath us does not have one and is not served currently by one. So, you know, that's always in our long-term thoughts, is that we want to make sure that we get rid of those areas that don't have any advocacy happening, or centers, or that are only getting it like part-time. Anybody unmute yourself and stop me if you have a question about a slide. I don't have too many. So here's just a graphic that I like to show that what it looks like when there is a CAC and when there isn't. So there's a coordinated effort. For example, we do case review every month together, where our partner agencies, and we call them the multidisciplinary team, so you'll hear me say MDT, we get together and we staff cases. So what that looks like is once a month, we review cases for the past month. We walk through, how did the case come in, who had it, DCF, law enforcement, us, whatever it looks like, and then who worked on the case. So basically taking us through the timeline, what's happening, where is it at now, what are needs that are not being met, law enforcement having trouble with something, is DCF, does DCF know something that law enforcement doesn't know? Do we, from working directly with the family and not being an investigative agency, so we're neutral, you know, are we getting information that maybe our partners are not aware of that would help them better protect the child, help in the investigation? Of course, we sign disclosure agreements and confidentiality and all of that amongst all of us, if anybody's thinking that in the back of their head. And a family gets to choose whether they work with us or not. We'll be there at the beginning, let them know what we can provide, and then they sign something that says, yes, you're okay to still contact me, or no thanks. Usually they say yes. And the amount that we help and work with the family can vary. So this is just a graphic of all of us working together. And I just always come back to our efforts are to do what's best for the child. So although we have all these partners working with us, everybody has their role and kind of their agenda, right? Whether they're investigating, whether they're providing medical services or mental health. And so it's really great for us because we get to be that person in the middle who's simply there for the family. So yes, we support our partners, but we're also the ones who can say, okay, I understand you need to get X, Y, and Z from the family, but this is what the family's experiencing right now. Or, hey, no one's given this family an update in a couple of weeks. And that causes a lot of anxiety. Can you let me know what's going on, or can you please reach out to them? So it's great. And it's been working really well. Every situation's different, but we've had multiple times every month where by just simply opening those lines of communication, it's better for everybody. This is our multidisciplinary team. So that includes all the jurisdictions as far as like law enforcement, including campus police for KU in our county. It also includes working closely with the district attorney's office, care center, Bert, Nash, have both been incredible support for us. Even us writing, we just recently got funding for a part-time therapy position. And when I was submitting those applications, it was Bert Nash staff who actually wrote a support letter about why it was so important, because of that the needs of the community were far exceeding what any of us alone could take care of, right? So I can't tell you how valuable that is. One, it shows funders and our governing bodies that we're working well together, but the fact that also all of our interactions are always just, what can we do? And we come across a lot of families that the kids are already in therapy when they've disclosed that something's happened. So that happens too. So a little bit like, how do we do this? I'm gonna get over here. Those are just gotta have your mission and vision and good stuff. So the way it happens, the first thing we started providing in February of last year is family advocacy. So what that can look like, it could be, it can happen kind of in two different ways. So because we are new to the community, we already had forensic interviewers at DCF and Lawrence PD who were doing interviews with kids. So we do have situations where Lawrence PD is still doing the forensic interview, and that just simply means fact finding when there's an allegation of abuse. And then they reach out to us and we go meet them at the station to meet with the family. So while the child's being interviewed, we can meet with the family, we can explain the process, let them know how this happens. If anybody's familiar at all with the legal side of things, I mean, if it does go to court, I mean, we're talking, it could be years, right? And that's not even in a pandemic or post-pandemic. So sometimes a lot of what we're doing is just reassurance, explaining the process, letting them know, a day from now, 2 days from now, when things calm down a little bit and you're thinking more clearly, who you can come back and reach out to, right? Because you give a family a packet of information, and who's retaining any of that at a time of crisis, right? When you're still trying to figure out what has actually happened. So we do family advocacy either at Lawrence PD or obviously here at our space. We also do forensic interviews. So DCF does that now when they have an opportunity that they need to interview a child, those all take place here. So the purpose of having CAC facility or center is so that we have this neutral, safe, child-friendly environment. And I know there's some people on the call here who, Mark was just here today, dropping some stuff off. So, the whole purpose of, we want people when they come in to kind of it's got a homey feeling. We want it to feel comfortable. We've got kids stuff in the lobby area, things that they can play with, comfortable chairs. We really want to help it not seem so scary, right? And depending on an individual's interaction with law enforcement or even DCF, this can be a very scary time, not to mention the fact that your child's been traumatized. So we're really trying to remove any of those barriers, financial barriers, location, access. Of course, we're on the bus line, which is really nice too. So if a family comes here for the interview, now, even if DCF's doing the interview and we're not necessarily involved, they're coming here to do that. They've been incredible partners in this process. And then on a typical, like how we would typically love for it to happen is, are any of our partners, so there does need to be a hotline or an actual report made for kids to come in for an interview. And that's really to protect their legal rights. Also, we don't want somebody just randomly kind of bringing somebody in, trying to prove if something's happened. We want to protect the child all the way through the system. So if a report's made, we get a referral. It's a long form that we have them fill out that says, for example, the ones that are coming in this week that are from other counties, somebody at another CAC said, oh, you're working with Douglas County, they have an advocacy center, here's their contact information. They fill out the referral that says they need a forensic interview and they need family advocacy. So I scheduled with the family, they'll be coming in, and then our law enforcement partners, if Child Protective Services from Missouri is involved, they can come too, and they all can observe. So we have a separate room next to where the kids are interviewed, and that there's like a closed circuit TV, and they can watch the interview. At one point, our interviewer, Sydney, she'll take a break, she'll step out, she'll consult with them. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything I need to elaborate on? We're honing these skills because the interviewing, it's a very intricate process to be very careful about not being leading, not putting words into a child's mouth and letting them do their own narrative. So then she'll go back in, she'll finish up the interview, and all of that, the family knows is happening as well as the child. So ahead of time, we're going to say, here, let me show you where you're going to be. See in this room, here's the cameras, here's the microphone. We have, some partners who are watching, and they've probably already met the detectives or DCF by that point, but they're watching in the next room, and just, it's a very open process. We're not trying to pull anything, plus all of this is going to go to court and be under a fine tooth comb if it proceeds, right? So we need to do everything on the up and up. So that takes place when our law enforcement partners leave. They leave with a flash drive of the full interview as well as the summary. So then they can decide what are their next steps. Is there more kids to be interviewed? Is there more victims? Is there more evidence to be collected as far as, it could be a digital footprint of acts that have happened, that type of thing. And then we also refer, when we're meeting with the family, we're going to talk about mental health services. So if they're already in services, great. Then we're going to kind of check what kind of services are they in. Because if we're talking about sexual trauma and that they're seeing somebody or something different that doesn't specialize in that, we're going to talk about that. We also can help pay for therapy. So right now, actually, when I get off here soon, I'll be interviewing for our part-time therapist position. But right now, we rely heavily on Bert, Nash, and the care center and individual therapists, and we directly do that warm handoff by making sure that we have somebody who has availability before we hand them, let the family know. We don't want to just give them a list and say like, good luck with that, because that's a nightmare. We can help pay for therapy also. And then we also refer out for medical. So right now, the majority of our kids are going to be sent to Children's Mercy for those specialized child abuse exams. And actually our board chair is the head of that department at Children's Mercy, Dr. Hansen. Some of you might know. And also I failed to mention a lot of our board members are partner agencies, because when we were getting started, you had to have great people at the table, right? So a lot of them are on our board also. Just to wrap up, and I'm just trying to be good, but I ramble because I get so excited. So right now we're associate or developing member of the National Children's Alliance. That is the step right before you become a fully accredited advocacy center. To become fully accredited, there's 10 to 13 standards, some are optional, that we have to meet. And then we have to do a complete site review where all our partners are interviewed to make sure that what I say we do is what we actually do. And then you get reviewed on that every 5 years. That's really important. And we are in the process of working on that already. We've had 3 meetings, I think. Every month we meet and go over standards, because a lot of that is not just me saying, okay, as staff, we got to do this or we've got to do that. It's needing our partner support that they will agree. Okay, well, we got to change the way we do this. We've got to change the way we do that, or it's not best practice for us to handle things, this way sometimes and do it differently other times. So it does take a community effort, which can make it very long and complicated. So our goal is maybe in the next 1.5 to 2 years to submit our application for accreditation. And then after that, you get reviewed. I think I've covered most of these. Our website should be live very soon. I think we're working on like making sure the language accessibility is on there and font size and stuff. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Bev, I had just a real quick question. You mentioned Children's Mercy, and I think and maybe this is it might be like a good future presentation for this group, but I know that when we first talked about, you know, that is where a lot of the kids for that specialized treatment would be referred to Children's Mercy, and some people may see that as a barrier, and because of the proximity and not being, or they may not have transportation. And I was really excited to hear that Children's Mercy has a lot of resources to help folks get there and get back.
Yes.
And provide like a stipend for food and gas and all that stuff. So could you mention that real quick, and maybe we have them come and present sometime?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So what we've had now, we've had this happen already, and I saw the transportation questionnaire thing. I was very excited to attend one of those meetings because that can be a barrier for families, right? So we do have gas cards, Uber cards. They're just not always ideal to get them. So once you get a family to Children's Mercy for services, Children's Mercy will take care of getting them home. So that's a good thing to know. Also, we will make sure that they get there. I know a lot of you are advocates, so you know us transporting priority on your radar, that's not really best practice. So, but we will make sure they go. We have had an instance where LPD actually took the family, gave them transportation for that exam. And it's going to depend. Sometimes it's critical where they need to go immediately. Oftentimes we don't get the disclosure for a while, so it's not quite as time sensitive. So yes, Children's Mercy does those. There can be exams done at LMH for the older kids, like 13 and up, but for us, when it's usually falling under that child abuse realm, which can or could not be the same as if you were having a sexual assault exam, those can go to LMH. And Children's Mercies offered some training too, that we could get some specialized staff training for LMH also, so that families wouldn't necessarily have to go to Children's Mercy. Children's Mercy provides consultation like all over Kansas and Missouri, actually the United States. So that's a possibility also, but we will always make sure that families get to Children's Mercy. So if you are ever contacted by a family, one, you can always reach us, and I'm more than happy to give you my personal cell phone number. But if it's a time sensitive or a current injury, we would definitely send them directly to Children's Mercy, and you can send them downtown or south for those exams. That could be time sensitive. Much of the other doesn't have to happen in the middle of the night or on the weekends, unless there's an instance where there's like an immediate safety concern. I hope that
really
kind of
helpful.
answers it.
That was helpful. There's one more, Gina put one more question in the chat too, just FYI.
Okay, let's see. Gina, how many use? Oh, okay, great question. So what that looks like is when we first opened, we kind of got our numbers of what we would expect to see. So remember, these have to be reports that are made where the child needs to have a forensic interview, which does not include kids that would come in and it's a family in need of services, or needing to be hooked up with a few resources. That's not going to be the same as kids who come in that need a forensic interview in the course of possibly a criminal investigation. So that changes like what the numbers look like. So when we first opened, we thought about 120 a year based on some numbers we got from DCF with sexual abuse cases that they had open cases and that type of thing. It is varied. What we've come to realize that number one keeps increasing, which is great, because at first, you have a couple months where you're like, hey, come let us help you and let us serve you. But also we are noticing that we are serving families because we have the capacity right now that don't come in that traditional way. And that can look like they might not get a forensic interview by just randomly calling me, but we have families who the interview took place before we even opened. But we have a family who was in need of therapy help and services and financial support for the therapy services. So we were able to help with that. Sydney's been able to help multiple families file PFAs because like our DCF partners, they can't help with that because it's considered providing legal assistance and guidance. So we had this, we're finding random things that just no one's able to do or no one currently does. And so we're trying to make sure that we fill those gaps whenever possible also. So let me think. I think last year, my latest goals, I put 100 kids for the year and 90 adults. That's our latest goal. And I apologize that I can't think off the top of my head what was the number last year. I want to say 69, but I might be off on that number off the top of my head. But we're finding though, we have adults calling, needing help and resources, maybe adult survivors. And so correctly, oh, I'm sorry, Lori, a PFA, like a protection from abuse. Yeah, Gabby put it in there. So that the way that arises sometimes in our situations is we have families that the person, over 90% of the time, it's someone the child knows, loves, and trusts. So to have somebody who lives in your apartment building be the abuser is not surprising. So we had a family where that was the case. And so they needed to file that protection from abuse so that person could not be within a certain range of where they lived. Another thing we provided for that family was a Ring doorbell. Just some of those things that you think, where are we going to get this? And that we were able to help with so that they just had that peace of mind. The child was old enough to be home alone, like after school. They were like a young teen, but the ability to feel safer because she could see what was going on outside her building, and that was helpful. Yeah, so anytime you have anything that you think might be fall under us, send them our way. And if it's not us, we don't let anybody just go. We help find out where they need to go. We have gotten quite a few requests in the last few weeks about needing domestic violence therapy for Spanish-speaking families. So we've had to reach out to a lot of partners to say, well, what do you do? Where do you go for this? So this is the care center. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Bev. Sorry,
yeah,
I don't know.
Go ahead, Gina.
Hi. I just wanted to ask a question. I know traditionally when we've had a child sexual abuse case or an investigation involving law enforcement, it typically takes a long time for that investigation to kind of wrap up and kind of know the outcome of where we're headed, what's going on. So does having the CAC in Douglas County mean that process is moving faster for victims or potential victims?
I'm going to venture to say no. I can't quote how long it took before we were here, but typically I would say if I was just telling a family how long the process is going to be, I would say a year to 2 years. And that's not even with a pandemic. If it's going to go the court route and if there's going to be criminal charges. Now, if it's pled out, which sometimes is beneficial also for the victim, right? To not have to go to court and testify in front of that person. But unfortunately, Gina, it's still a long process. Everything seems to be different, but also we do have challenges in some of our smaller communities with them just simply not having the manpower to dedicate to full-time investigating. And that's really frustrating, for families, and to let them know what's happening next. And that's why it's important that we can talk to the DA's office as well as, and their victim witness coordinators have been great. But I would like to say it speeds up the process, but yeah, probably not. Anybody have another question that I can have a happier answer for?
Thank you, Bev. I have to cut the question short because I didn't give as much time to.
Nope, you bet. I'm good. I'll make sure my email's back in there to you guys so you can see it.
Yes, thank you. The next person we have here is Kevin Kelly to talk about some things that are going on with Peaslee Tech. Kevin, do you have anything to share? I think you can share your screen if you need to.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to present a little information and regarding a grant. And then Andrea Chavez, our Executive Director of Grants and Administration, is going to talk about a grant that we've recently received from Google. So if any of you have clients that have been trying to get in through WIOA funding to receive training with us, there is annually, there's a gap that happens normally between about March and April and August. And it happens again this year because, well, it always does. But we received other funding to help folks that would qualify for WIOA funding to enter into training programs here at Peaslee. And just to give you an idea of the range, it's from, you know, court reporters to truck drivers. So there's a lot of different opportunities for folks. I will mention a couple specific ones. If you have a client that, you know, a short-term training to get to a livable wage job, in the month of July, we have a pharmacy technician program. They come for 4 weeks, like 9 to 1:30 for 4 weeks. And they will, if they want one, they will have a job as a pharmacy technician. And I can say without any reservation that in any of these jobs, if they train to be a truck driver, if they train to be a carpenter, if they, you know, the demand is so high that they will get a livable wage job either while they're in the class or when they get done with the class. So we think we have enough funds left for about 15 more folks before this gap funding runs out. And the only caveat we have is they must be a Lawrence resident for this particular funding, and they must be they would have qualified for WIOA funding, which is a pretty broad a number of ways in which a person can qualify for WIOA funding. There's many different ways to qualify. So you know, that's the part I wanted to mention and answer any questions regarding those programs and how a person enters. I should mention it's an extremely simple process to get enrolled at Peaslee Tech. We've made it to where we can sit down in a matter of a couple minutes. It's not like you're trying to get into, you know, other types of higher education institutions. It's not intimidating, and we'll help your clients get enrolled in the program, as well as help them with finding funding to pay for it. So that, and again, that's called RISE, Raise Income Security and Equity in Lawrence, Kansas. In the city, it's actually City of Lawrence is the full title, RISE City of Lawrence. We've had other versions of RISE, if that sounds familiar. We've had one from the Chamber of Commerce. We had one from Douglas County. And so we continue to try to find ways to help people move out of poverty by finding careers in livable wage jobs. So that's my part of it. Andrea?
Yes, hi.
Take it away.
Okay. I hopefully will not, if you can see me, my computer sometimes freezes, so I don't usually have my video on very much, but I'm going to share my screen. Today I'm going to be discussing the Google scholarships that we were awarded. Very exciting. Let me get this screen shared. So basically, we were awarded 100 Google Career Scholarships. And with that, we are kind of just what a Google Career Certificate is. They provide job seekers with access to in-demand skills through job training without the need for a college degree or any prior experience in the field. There are currently 5 Google certificate programs: project management, digital marketing and e-commerce, data analytics, UX design, and IT support. These certificates are taught and developed by Google employees, and they're very experienced. And the people who are awarded and take these certificate programs should complete their certificate in 3 to 6 months with part-time effort. And there are a couple eligibility requirements in order for these people to be selected. And so the first is we want to distribute them to individuals who identify as a member of a diverse ethnicity or race, as a minority, they identify as a U.S. veteran or have a disability, and then also those from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. So similar to what Kevin was saying, that they qualify for RISE or WIOA, those people would qualify for these as well. The second piece of that is we want these people who take these to have a pathway to the career through either their employer relationship or job search support. So, you know, we don't want someone that isn't really interested in pursuing this, or if it can't advance them in their current career, or that they're not going to go into it, awarding them this scholarship because they're not really going to use it in the way that Google is hoping that they would. So then I just, each of these kind of gives a little bit about the certificate. So the first one, the data analytics, is working knowledge of essential data analysis platforms, spreadsheets, SQL, programming, data life cycles. And so these are kind of the roles that they may qualify for once they get done with this one. Then the next one, digital marketing and e-commerce. They have fundamentals of digital marketing to help grow businesses and online presence and sales. And then here's kind of the qualified roles that they might qualify with this one. Marketing coordinator, e-commerce analyst, media coordinator. The next, IT support, as you can imagine, that's supporting IT jobs. So how to assemble a computer, write effective support documentation, route paths, manage device software, and much more. And then the roles that you could qualify for here, IT support specialist, help desk, system analyst, system, I guess I listed systems analyst twice, it's kind of weird. Then project management. So they learn how to run traditional and agile projects, programs from initiation to completion, schedules, budgets, project elements, and product requirements. And then the roles. So somebody could be a project manager, project coordinator, program manager, supply chain coordinator. UX design, this is probably one I know the least about. They'll learn how to follow the UX design process, the basics of UX research, and can work with these items. And then the qualified roles are UX designer, UX consultant, strategist, sorry. And then they've also created a employer consortium. So currently, these are just some of the companies that are signed on. So ultimately, if an employer is interested in participating and would like to hire these folks that get these scholarships, I can grant them access to the consortium. It's free for employers to join. And so we're going to be outreaching. This is part of why we're sharing this with y'all today. So we're going to be outreaching and hopefully reaching many employers that might have current staff that they feel would be good candidates for these scholarships. Or if they don't, maybe they would be interested in hiring someone who completed these scholarships. And I am actually, we just were granted this these scholarships. So I am very new. I haven't even been trained on the Coursera platform, which is
Okay, I'm coming to her rescue because she's frozen. She doesn't know that I'm rescuing her though. So this is very new. We just received the information about 10 days ago that we were being awarded 100 of these scholarships, and which is actually it's a lot of great opportunities for folks in our community. And it can also be, I want you to just think that it's not just for your clients, but it can also be for people on your staff. They are designed to take for people that are going on to that career path. Like, for example, if they're already working as a help desk person, but they want to advance more into databases or building interactions, human machine interactions between the, oh, I see signs changing, so she must be changing it for me.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, okay, great.
thank
I'll let you take back over. I was dancing a little
yeah,
bit, perhaps.
sorry about that. Yeah, so as he was saying, exactly that. So, you know, it's basically someone who maybe has always wanted to, you know, maybe do something in IT support, but maybe it's only been the front desk assistant kind of person. So these, you know, are kind of here to advance the growth of someone who's maybe already in that line of field, or maybe is just very interested and wants to be in that line of field. Google also has a lot of career resources to them. So if they are part of the program, there's a bunch of resources that they offer them with being granted the scholarship. Once again, as stated, I'm learning all this as well, so bear with me, and I will have more information if you guys want to reach out. I'll put my email in the chat. And then this was just their numbers that they had, and I thought it was interesting that they're certificate graduates. So they reported 75 reported improvement in their career trajectory within 6 months of their certificate completion. 38 from the certificate graduates were from the lowest income. 55 were graduates identified as Black, Asian, or Latino. And then 59% didn't have any college degree. So, you know, there was no prior experience required for these. These were just, I threw these in here, success stories from folks. So then another wonderful thing is that many of these scholars certificate programs are in multiple languages offered. So we're not restricted to, you know, just English. So there's opportunities there. And then these are just kind of the learner journey. So basically they learn about their scholarship, they accept the scholarship, they receive the invitation from me in a Coursera. They then choose and enroll which certificate they're going to be in. And then they keep learning, go through all their classes, they graduate, look for a job, and then they start using their new job skills. So that is kind of the process. Let me stop sharing. That will help me not freeze. Does anybody have any specific questions?
How would a person get either enrolled into Peaslee Tech or access to these scholarships?
So right now I'm working on that. I just was granted access to the Coursera platform. And so I will first have to get into well, I've gotten in, but I haven't seen that the scholarships have been added there yet. Literally when Kevin talked with you about presenting, I was like, we haven't even gotten these yet. So this is very, very new still. But they can always just reach out to me via email, but we also are in the works of adding a tab to our website. So we'll have information up there regarding the platform, how to contact us. I'm going to create an application that they will complete as well, and it'll submit to me so we can review, make sure that they qualify. So that's going to be through our website, all in the works, of course, since like I said, literally have not had this, haven't even gotten the actual scholarships in the program yet. So it's all still very, very new, but I would say first things first would just be contacting here, you know, any of us at Peaslee. They can get me a message or they can get me directly. I'm about to put my email in here.
And if they also need to talk with someone, because some people would be a little more comfortable with that, they can do it by phone or they can come visit us here. We know for some folks, when they're thinking about doing something like this that they haven't done before, it's more comfortable to come sit down and have a visit and, you know, see where things are. So we would love to have them come visit us. And because I do want, if there's a couple parts of this that I think are important. First, I don't know if you've been seeing the Grow with Google commercials. They've been on like the air a lot for the last few weeks. And that's this same program, Grow with Google. And because we're a Google school, we were, and because of the population that make up a considerable part of the people we serve, we were eligible to receive these scholarships. And the other part of this is we don't want them to, any of your folks that come to us, we don't want them to go away empty-handed. So if we sit down and we go through this with them and it's really not for them, we're going to try to find something that is for them. So one way or another, we're going to try to help folks get on a path that, you know, to self-sufficiency if they're not, or to improve personal income if we can.
And I'm sorry, Mark, I'm gonna have to cut you off. Can you ask your question in the chat? I have to give the Care Center enough time to present as well. Thank you so much, Kevin and Andrea, for presenting. Please toss your emails in the chat so if folks have additional questions, they can get a hold of you. And I want to open it up to Gabby Boyle of the Care Center to provide a short 15-minute presentation. Again, I apologize for cramming too much in here, but take it away.
Thank you, Gabby, and thank you to everyone else who shared information about what they're getting up to. It's super useful to have these meetings in the space where we can share updates. Is everybody able to see the presentation question? Cool. So I will keep this short and sweet. The Care Center just recently relaunched and rehauled our Safe Bar Alliance program, both on the curriculum and the administrative end of things, and also on the branding side of things. So I figured that this was a wonderful time to explain to folks who weren't familiar with the Safe Bar Alliance program what it is, and also talk to you about some of those updates. For those who don't know, the Safe Bar Alliance has been a violence prevention curriculum that's existed in Lawrence since 2010. It is focused on training staff working in the bar and restaurant industry to recognize, intervene in, and de-escalate potentially unsafe situations related to sexual violence. So this program has been around for over a decade, and it's seen a lot of iterations in that time. But in 2021 and early 2022, a lot of bars were in crisis due to the pandemic. They had to close down. They were having staff losses. And so that gave us a lot of time to really recuperate and kind of consider where we could update the Safe Bar Alliance program to make it more engaging for our community members, to make it more useful, et cetera. So this is the first major change to the curriculum and to the design for the Safe Bar Alliance program, I would say in over 4 years, although Chrissy or Megan, who are also from the Care Center, can correct me if I've got that wrong. So one of the changes that we made when we were considering how to sort of rehaul the Safe Bar Alliance curriculum was to really focus on, or I guess really reframe this type of training, these types of community conversations as upstream prevention, as primary prevention, where we're thinking about how can we prevent violence before it even happens. And additionally, we were really thinking about how can we build this program collaboratively with the community around community conversations that are being had by our friends working in the service industry. So when this program was conceived, again, a dozen years ago, it was built in direct response to conversations that folks were having about working in the service industry, seeing patrons experience harassment and not really knowing what to do. But of course, the conversation in our community about sexual violence has changed a lot since then. And so we've updated the curriculum to address some emergent concerns that folks in the service industry are having, in addition to feedback that we were receiving from participants. And I'll talk a little bit about those trends and sort of what that looks like in the next slide. But I also want to say another thing that we updated is that the way that we do these trainings is now more collaborative than ever. We customize individual trainings based on an establishment's needs. So we will speak to our contact at an establishment before we even go in and do the training about what are they seeing, have they had these types of conversations with their staff in the past. Training something like a bowling alley is going to be very different than training, a place like the replay lounge. So we really want to make sure that we're using the time of the staff in a way that actually feels like it's useful to them, and that we're not just coming in there and talking at them about sexual violence for 2 hours, right? So we've kind of standardized that process as well of collecting information about what these trainings will look like on an individual basis. And so, again, one of the changes that we made to the curriculum, as I mentioned earlier, was that we really started to reframe this as a upstream prevention program instead of just an individual skills-based program. Part of this is based on the work that the Care Center is already doing with kind of taking more of a public health approach to sexual violence prevention. The techniques that we use in our Safe Bar Alliance program and in our trainings are recognized as effective prevention strategies by the CDC in their Stop Sexual Violence technical package. So using bystander intervention skills is considered to be an evidence-based prevention technique. And we not only focus on individual de-escalation skills, but we also, again, in this rehaul, added an opportunity for staff to speak with their managers about establishment-wide actions that they could take. So things like establishing new policies, strengthening existing policies, identifying barriers that are occurring on the level of a specific environment that might prevent somebody from getting access to the support they need. And that's been really powerful. Oftentimes this is, the only time that staff have had a third-party facilitator there to mediate conversations between them and leadership and to kind of create some accountability when it comes to following up on, this was brought up in training, this was recommended as a policy, like, do you need help implementing that or writing that? Another major shift that we made was focusing on cultural norms that promote sexual violence. So again, really moving away from sort of like an individual focused approach and instead asking questions about what sort of power dynamics, attitudes, systems are in place that are specific to the bar and restaurant industry that kind of can make staff or make patrons more vulnerable to experiencing harassment. And again, this is an evidence-based technique that has been shown to decrease the rate of sexual violence in environments where people are having conversations about identifying and modifying cultural norms that promote violence. A lot of this change was kind of spurned by some studies that came out in 2020 and 2021 about the experience that staff were having during COVID, right? There was a significant increase in harassment for people working in the service industry during COVID. And previously, the Safe Bar Alliance program was a little bit more focused on patron safety. But we realized that a lot of establishments in our community, this program has been around for so long, are already thinking about how to keep patrons safe, but they don't necessarily have the tools or the confidence to keep their staff safe or keep their coworkers safe or look out for each other or have those conversations with management. So again, we really wanted to kind of shift to being able to facilitate conversations about staff safety and not just patrons. This is what our new curriculum looks like. Sorry about the bleed marks if you're a graphic design expert. For those of you who aren't familiar, our Safe Bar Alliance trainings, again, are focused on bystander intervention and sort of, again, changing those social norms. We start by identifying what the issue is, opening a conversation about what assumptions and experiences of sexual violence people have in the service industry, how those might impact their ability to keep our community safe. We move into individual skills, which are those 3Ds, and then also, again, kind of have a space for people to brainstorm establishment-wide actions that they could take. And then in addition to new curriculum, we also got beautiful new swag. This was designed by our wonderful Director of Communications, Megan Engelman, who's on this call, and was funded by Be More Like Claire, who's also on this call. I think I saw Shannon here. So we really updated the visual language of this program, made it a little bit more contemporary and eye-catching, and that has really incentivized bars to join this program, because now they see fancy new posters and they're like, wow, our posters are outdated and dark and aged. You know, we want your fancy new koozies and beer keys and beautiful mint green posters. So there's a little peek of our new visual branding. And then finally, you know, I know that we're about to wrap up here, so I just want to leave you with some statistics about the impact that the Safe Bar Alliance has had since these changes were made to the program, both again in curriculum, in administration, and also in visual branding. Since June 2021, we created a new technical assistance package. We've always provided technical assistance to other communities wanting to start Safe Bar Alliance programs, but we bundled up a bunch of new resources, modified some language again to reflect the changing, I guess, ethos of the Safe Bar Alliance curriculum. That included an updated facilitator guide, kind of a roadmap to guide communities through asking questions about who they need to partner with, what resources they need to allocate through this or for this, thinking about how they can design and print swag, and then some like templates for tracking numbers or tracking contacts, like administrative, you know, boring spreadsheet templates like that. And we've used this technical package program in the last year with 7 organizations, 5 located here in Kansas, 1 in Nebraska, and 1 in Nevada. And I want to say in the decade since we've started the Safe Bar Alliance, we've provided technical assistance to 26 organizations in total. So 7 in a year, I think, is pretty impressive. Additionally, since June 2021, we've trained 14 unique establishments. That's over 200 individuals. And we have several trainings scheduled for this summer as well. This is, again, a really impressive output. Relative to the past, you know, in the years 2016 to 2020, we trained 24 establishments in total. That's an average of 6 a year. So 14 in a year is really impressive. And again, I think having this new curriculum and having conversations that maybe feel a little bit more relevant to staff has really been helping us build relationships and get people involved in community prevention. And then finally, my last update is that we're also still offering trainings that are compliant with the City of Lawrence's liquor license requirements. So if you're not familiar, in 2020, the City of Lawrence passed an ordinance that requires establishments who are applying for renewing a liquor license to send managers to a sexual violence prevention and bystander intervention training. We still do these. I host these online twice a month. We are planning on potentially piloting an in-person training in the near future here, once we find an appropriate space. But yeah, they've been online. These trainings are similar in content, but to be honest, they're less engaging. It's a mandatory training. They're online. It's a PowerPoint. But we've still made a significant impact in terms of output there, training 202 individuals since June 2021, which represents 81 unique establishments. That program has been both really challenging, and that facilitating a training where we've got like a bowling alley, a gym, a college bar, and a fancy restaurant all in the same room. You know, having those conversations in such a broad sense is really hard. And I think that sometimes establishments do end up seeking out safe bar training afterwards because they're interested in this conversation. They want to bring it back to their staff, which is, ideal. But also I think sometimes that program can discourage people from going through the full staff training because they've already sent their managers or they're confused about why they need to do it again. So I think that that's been interesting to see that ordinance unfold since we're the first in the nation. And as far as I know, there's only one other community that has created something similar since we passed that. So it's interesting to see how that's been playing out and the impact it's had on our outreach and education efforts. So that's all I've got for you. Sorry, that was a speed run. But if you've got questions that you didn't have answered in the last 12 minutes, shoot me an email, or you can reach out to Megan, our Director of Communications, who also does so much with this program and who has been supporting facilitation, supporting design, supporting recruitment. So yeah, that's us. Any questions in the last 3 minutes? Oh, absolutely, Kevin. I will totally connect with you about that. If you've got a space we can use, our office is modest. So
excuse me, I would like just to add, not just for this group, but any nonprofit that needs space for training or others, it's available at no cost at Peaslee, based on availability around class schedules. So Gabby, definitely, but anybody else that has those needs, please let us know.
Any other questions for Gabby? Well, a huge thank you to all our presenters today. I really appreciate you all taking time out of your days to come share with our community partners about what's happening at your agencies. So looking towards the next meeting, it will be on September 8th, 2022 at 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., just like today. I think I'll probably have 1 or 2 presenters like we've done today, and then I might open up for some discussion as to what we want this space to be. As a new facilitator, I always like to get a feel for kind of what people think that the group is meant to accomplish, and just kind of try to suss that out with all of us. So looking forward to that, with doing that with you all. But thank you all for coming today. I hope it's been beneficial and informative, and we'll see y'all later. Bye.